Welcome back. It's been a rough year for the Florida Democratic Party. They shut down their field registration operations because of the coronavirus, and then they made a serious mistake by applying for and receiving nearly $800,000 in PPP loans from the federal government designed to help small businesses during the pandemic. When the loan was revealed, the party was embarrassed, and they claim they returned the money. But many questions remain, including whether they violated the law by falsifying records to get the loan in the first place. I discussed all of this, as well as the state of the race in Florida, with the head of the state Democratic Party, Terrie Rizzo.
Why are Republicans registering more people than Democrats right now?
Well, first of all, in the context of the entire cycle, our numbers are very strong, particularly in 2019 and into 2020 in the early part of the year. And as you know, we passed the 5 million registered Democrat mark and made history in terms of voter registration. So overall, our numbers are strong. But of course, once the coronavirus hit, we pivoted and began to increasingly focus on getting out the electorate that we needed to get and getting people, and we began to do something we already had been doing, which was register to people to vote by mail as a way to be able to vote. We increasingly turned to that as a way to get out the electorate. So we observed safety precautions, and in the interest of public health, began to do online organization and online registrations with regard to vote by mail, and with tremendous results, as you've seen, in terms of our vote by mail numbers. So again, we were observing the guidelines and public safety and public health, and continue to do that.
I guess what I'm curious about, by being more, as you would phrase it, responsible in terms of how you're dealing with it, did you open a door, though, for Republicans in the sense that while they may not have followed the same guidelines, they've been a lot more active both on the ground in terms of door knocking and in terms of going out and getting people registered? So I guess I'm wondering whether or not they may have bent or broken some of the rules as you see them, but at the end of the game, do they end up winning as a result?
We believe that the Democrats are incredibly organized and energized and have been campaigning in a different way, if you will, in terms of online phone banking, texting, volunteers, organization. We've seen tremendous volunteers, numbers of volunteers coming forward, county party organization, and work around the state. We're seeing the numbers that we need to see. And so it's all about getting out the vote. It's all about the message getting out in terms of the message we've got in terms of the president and vice president, Joe Biden and President Trump, and the two different, completely different ways that they will govern going forward. And we believe our message is resonating loud and clear, and that message will carry.
And of course, it's not just the top of the ticket. The party, the state party, of course, is responsible for a lot of the down ballot issues in terms of state house and state senate races. Are you satisfied that the party did enough to actually get candidates to challenge Republicans? I know that there's been some complaining that there were quite a few House seats that the Democrats are not mounting serious challenges in. Is that a mistake? And what does the Democratic Party have to do to field a more fuller field in the future?
Well, in actual fact, we have challenges in almost every seat in the State House and State Senate, as you know, our sunshine slate, as well as in County Commission and Constitutional Office seats across the state, what we call our sunshine slate. And we are working hard to get Democrats elected in every one of these seats, and have been working to provide the resources that candidates need and can use. For example, last year we started something called the Municipal Victory Program to help provide training and on digital and online resources to all of our candidates across the state, and are working hard to get Democrats elected everywhere.
One of the issues that has come up in a number of races in both the state house and state senate races has been the issue of the state party taking PPP money. Do you believe that was a complete political misstep that may end up costing votes as Republicans are able to cite that in campaigns and elections around the state? Do you regret doing that? And how big a mistake just politically was that?
Well, look, we've addressed this before, and we believe we were eligible. We applied. The SBA and the loan officers and the bank all guided us through the process. It was accepted. The minute we found out that it was not, that a mistake had been made, we returned the funds. It is a blatant lie that the Republicans are using against our candidates. The money was returned, as can be found by our FEC filings, and none of that money ever reached any of our candidates. So it's a blatant lie. The Republicans are using this as a diversionary tactic against their failed policies. They have nothing on which to run. As I indicated before, they're the ones who are responsible for the unemployment disaster here in the state of Florida. They're the ones who are responsible for not calling a special session for COVID relief. They have nothing. They're the ones who are completely supporting Donald Trump and his failed policies, and have been solidly behind him 100%. So as I said, they're using it as a diversionary tactic in order to divert from what they don't have, and it's a complete lie.
Well, if there's nothing there, why not release the actual PPP loan application and documents? You say it's included in your FEC report. Only parts of it really is. And there's still a number of outlying questions. Why not release the loan application so that people can see, did you apply for it as the Florida Democratic Party? Did you apply for it through the building fund? Does the building fund even have employees that would have qualified? I guess there are a lot of questions that are left outstanding that would be cleared up if nothing was done wrong. If you simply release the records, why not release the records?
Well, listen, we've already addressed this now. We're in the middle of an election. I've said what I've had to say on it.
Terrie, but you haven't really addressed it. You haven't released the records. You haven't made that information available. It does seem to some people that you're just trying to run out the clock so that none of this gets released before the election. I guess my question to you is, when will you release those records relating to the PPP loan itself?
Well, we're as I said, we're in the middle of an election now. We're going to continue to focus on this election and going forward.
Okay, so you're not able to answer any questions with regard to whether or not you use the building fund.
Yeah. No, I've said all I've had to say on this, and we're, as I said, we're going to focus on this election, winning this election, and focusing on why it's important to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as our president and vice president of the United States, and getting out every single vote going forward.
As you can see, there are still a lot of questions to be answered after the election. When we come back, I talk to the head of the Republican Party in Florida. Stay with us.